that let's say, still sluggish are the education sector. And that is because, as you can imagine, the schools, the educational institutions did not, they were closed during this period. And therefore, there was no quote-unquote production of educational services. That is how KNBS has recorded it, at least according to their recording. But obviously, those numbers, as we all can understand, at least the public employees in the education sector continue to be paid, and they continue to perform whatever services that they were supposed to perform. So, on the whole, indication is that Q3 is a much better quarter, and indeed into the early indications in October show that that strengthening has continued. I want to touch finally on the sort of external sector, and this is, for instance, things related to our exports. And as you can imagine, during that period in Q2, there was limited air transportation of goods into the various markets, and those markets actually had also been closed. Now they have been reopened. They were reopened, and actually our numbers in terms of export numbers have actually gone and expanded beyond where they were even last year. So, and I'm talking of things like fruits and vegetables, flowers, and indeed tea. Tea actually has expanded quite well.
Governor, you've said there could be possible recovery when it comes to the last quarter and, of course, quarter three. But when you look at the possible risks right now, the political situation in the country, coronavirus, a global pandemic, and also the U.S. election, what worries you the most when it comes to economic recovery in relation to those three possible risks?
These are big risks, the three that you mentioned. But I think the one that worries me the most is corona, is the virus. Why? Because I think the others, we know the magnitude of them. I mean, you talked about the political risks in the country. You know, we've been through many political risks. Just a few years ago, when we were doing the elections, there was also the same anticipation that, and our view then was, and as it is now, we know for sure whatever happens in the elections, we know one thing, two things that for sure. One is that whoever gets elected will be a Kenyan. And that we know for sure. And the second thing is that they will be supportive of market-based policies in the economy. So, and I think from that perspective, we were able to ride through the elections that we had a few years ago. Now, it's true, politics always gives this sort of uncertainties and things like that. But I think that is something that I think we have managed before, and I don't see why we shouldn't manage it now. I mean, after all, there is much more understanding that we can have differences, but still have a discourse on what is before us. So that, I think, is clear. In terms of the U.S. elections, I don't think that is something that should lead to an increase, or on the contrary, it should lead to a decrease in the uncertainties that have been, let's say, embedded in the financial markets and indeed to all of us. I mean, that has been a big risk that we've been running, or a significant policy uncertainty because of the stance that has been pursued, and indeed the directions that have been coming through. So I think it will lead to greater policy certainty, and which is definitely positive. After all, the elections are in the next few, in about a week. So I think those are positive more than anything else. So coronavirus is actually the one that is the greatest unknown. And frankly, you could actually say the others are in the realm, if you want some language, the others are in the realm of known unknowns. Coronavirus in the realm of unknown unknowns, so we don't know what it could lead to, so you don't even know how to measure it. how to measure the risk. So it is the biggest unknown.
All right, so talking about the US, the United States, we have to talk about the dollar to the shilling. The shilling right now is trading at about 108.88 and could be heading to around 109. Does this worry you?
No, it doesn't worry me. When you have a well-organized market, you have a rate that actually is appropriate for both buyers and suppliers, you know. Secondly, it is, of course, we understand that if there is a significant change in the rate, it will lead to significant impact on inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So we do understand the impact on all these things. But I think the bottom line is that we have had this exchange rate policy. It has served us very well. And I think those that have been talking about it have actually been making those statements for their own benefit more than anything else, all from a point of view of misunderstanding what really happens in a market.
Governor, you're having conversations with the commercial bank CEOs, of course. What are you talking about right now?
So the recovery in the post-COVID period. And obviously banks will be central to that. And we cannot wait until it happens. You know, just like everything else, you cannot steer. You need to steer before you get to the curve, you know. So, yeah, we have to have those conversations so that they actually understand better what they need to do. And not just themselves, it is everybody in their business, including their boards, management, everyone else, to the, you know, the teller that you meet when you go to a bank branch, et cetera, et cetera. Underlying all this is the push that we have been having, and maybe a conversation that we have been having for over the last couple of years, which is making the banks resilient. And frankly, this has been very beneficial. I mean, if they hadn't taken the actions they had taken before the COVID crisis, we'll be talking a completely different language. For instance, as you can imagine, during the COVID crisis, I mean, since March, they have restructured something like 1.3 trillion of loans, 1.3 trillion shilling of loans, which is something like 43% of the loan book, total loan books for banks. And I think that could not have happened if they didn't have the posture that they had coming into the COVID crisis. And that posture relates to a certain element of they had, let's say, buffers in terms of elbow room, in terms of strength of the banks. The banks were stronger and therefore are able to do the restructuring. The restructuring, by the way, it hurts their cash flow, you know, so the P&L, profit and loss statements, but it strengthens in the long run their balance sheet, because in that you have a stronger, let's say, borrowers, right? So in some sense, your assets have a better sort of better horizon. So even if you think of it from the perspective of, well, other ways of calibrating it, you have a stronger long-term position in terms of your balance sheet, even though you have a much weaker position in terms of cash flow.
Do you feel that you have to empower your employees more because of the pandemic?
You know, for instance, one of the things that we have done is to test our business continuity practices. So that we can run the central bank without being in the central bank. And actually being able to fail over to another site, you know, around the country, where we could actually run the central bank from, if for whatever reason we were unable to run it in the regular way here, and et cetera, et cetera. That means people are empowered. I mean, you have people who have to do that somewhere. So their practices are clear. The systems also support that, and everybody knows what they need to do. So empowerment, in my view, is an issue of being clear about what your responsibilities are and being clear about your reporting structure, so responsibilities and the responsibilities of those around you. So how do you, that is to me what it is. And you're working towards a common goal, all of you, regardless of your specific, that is empowerment. So we strengthen, for instance, our data centers actually, and so that we can do this adequately. Another thing we've done, this is during coronavirus, right? So another thing we've done is to strengthen our RTGS, real-time gross settlement system. Our real-time gross settlement system is called KEPS. We call it KEPS. It's a long name, but anyway. The system we upgraded it in June of this year. But it had, over a period of time, we were upgrading it. The system before that could only run maximum 50,000 transactions per day. And the maximum that we have ever had was something like 24,000 transactions. But we needed to expand this. So we expanded it, we upgraded it, and frankly, we know that this system can run more than 1 million transactions a day, more than 1 million. And, but it is more, the limit, we haven't even hit it. We don't know what the limit is. But 1 million is well beyond the capacity that we, obviously would need. And frankly, just in August, we hit our maximum ever of 65,000 transactions in a day. So already above the limit of the previous system. But the point is, it's not just upgrading, the way you upgrade your, phone to version, 13 or 14 or whatever else it is. It is because we are looking towards strengthening our payment system. As you know, Kenyans are very digital, and if there's any country that is becoming much more, that is really becoming digital, it's Kenya. And so you need to support those transactions, and the RTGS is really the backbone of the significant transactions that take place. Also, the new system allows us to do much more things with regard to AML, CFT, anti-money laundering. Also enables us to be ready. It comes functionally capable of doing supporting a 24/7 economy. So transactions can actually be done 24/7. We are not there yet in terms of, turning on those possibilities, but we will get there.
Governor, what kind of a leader are you? Do you lead from the back? Do you lead from the front? Are you autocratic?
I think it's for you to tell me. You are the expert. I'm not. I've never gone into any MBA class, so I just do. I just do stuff. So I don't know. I've never sat down to think what sort of a leader I am. But things come to me, I deal with them. If somebody else wants to tell me what sort of a leader I am, I'm willing to listen. But I mean, frankly, maybe to take it some other way, Brenda, this coronavirus has really taxed our leadership. And I'm talking about myself. I mean, from my perspective, clearly the banks depend on the central bank in particular ways for direction. And you could also say the population depend on the financial sector in particular ways. And so all those pressures obviously come to the central bank. And so you need to worry about what is coming next and how to resolve those issues. In terms of technical issues, those are difficult, but I think, those are the things that are not so problematic, frankly. The technical issues, the technical solutions for things, they are not the most problematic things. The more difficult things are explaining to people and convincing them that it is in their interest to do something else that they never had thought about.
Governor, at the height of the pandemic, what was the most difficult part about your job?
First, the people. There's no doubt about it. I mean, when you get information about people getting sick and things like that, these are not numbers. I mean, they're human beings. We have people, you know, I mean, that is difficult, you know, to understand that these are just not statistics, that 1,000 people are sick. These are not just statistics. As I say, for me, all the people that are connected to us, I feel this very strong connection with them. And to me, there are struggles. And the struggles of all the people in my, you know, that I'm responsible for are my struggles. And so that is something, that's the burden of the job. And I feel that burden, and I have to carry it. That is one. The other one, I think, is, I guess, what I would call the near misses. You know, the mistakes that maybe, you know, we didn't go over the precipice in a particular way, right? And what do I mean by that? It is some of the things that maybe well, I guess after a period of time, you realize that there was something that you didn't know, right, in a particular. So the fog of war, when you need some information and you don't have that information and you have to move ahead with it. And I think without the information, and then later on you realize that when the information comes in, you probably were this close to making a big blunder, whatever it is. But in a sense, that doesn't bother me after the fact, because if I am comfortable that we used all the information we had and we used it well, then I have less of a problem in that regard. But I think
This is KTN News.